I think. My name is Deron Drumm. Very happy to be here. I want to thank you all for the service you're providing to the residents of Connecticut. It's really important. I particularly want to thank the governor and Commissioner Pat Reamer for collaborating to make sure someone with lived experience is on the panel. That means a lot to us. I personally, and on my behalf and many others, want to thank Kathy Flaherty for standing up and self-disclosing and being here for us. It means an incredible amount to us. I am the Executive Director of Advocacy Unlimited. Our organization does two main things. We do, of course, advocacy. We look at issues through a human rights lens. We look at human rights violations. We look to change the mental health system and do what we can to make things better in Connecticut. And we do that in a lot of ways. The other thing we do is we teach, train about alternatives to the current mental health system. Wellness tools, peer support, which we've heard in context of police officers, we do it in context of people who are experiencing emotional distress or crisis. We hold the state of Connecticut certification for peer support, so if you want to work in the mental health system as a peer specialist, you go through our program, take an exam, and get certified. And I'll talk a little bit more about alternatives later. I am a person who self-identifies as having experienced, lived with, through what is commonly called mental illness. I've experienced extreme emotional states. Being here, I think it's important that I kind of tell what I think are good ideas moving forward, my humble opinion, through kind of my story, so I hope you bear with me. It's not really easy to tell some of the things I want to tell, but I think it is important. I'm someone who, as a child, suffered a lot of distress. I'm 41 years old, so when I suffered all this stress, there was no computers to Google things. I didn't know what it was. I went through a lot of different things, and I'm going to give some examples, which I don't always do because I think it is necessary. I had rituals and routines I went through every day. I rubbed my tongue against my teeth probably 1,000 times a day as a kindergartner or first grader. My mouth would bleed, and teachers would say, "What's going on?" Of course, I would say, "I bit my tongue." I did that so my parents wouldn't die. That's what my brain was telling me. I had a lot of these things. I think one example I was telling one of my colleagues, it stood out to me in context of kind of this link between mental illness and violence, which I think simply does not exist. I remember playing with neighbors' kids. Probably I was 8 years old, and there was a bee in the room, and one of the girls in the room was saying, "You should kill it." I killed it. I probably spent months punishing myself, for killing one of God's creatures, waited for the wrath to come down on me. And I experienced all these things in complete silence, so afraid to talk to my family about them, so afraid to talk to anyone about them. I didn't know what to do. And I spent years dealing with different things, many different things that were very distressful for me. When I finally learned to drive, it was just an amazing nightmare. I thought I hit people when I drove. I would turn around and look in the woods, look at the news the next day, see if there was a hit and run. And through all this, I had to cover it up. So when I was at my girlfriend's house and I ran out to get pizza, and it took me 45 minutes to come back because I had experience. I thought I hit someone, I had to go through all that. Like this day, I ran into someone there. This happened. All these experiences. When I'm with friends walking through a door and I have this feeling that I need to walk through it again. I tell people I forgot something. Just doing things to make sure, I don't appear quote unquote crazy. The whole time not having any clue what I was going through. So we had the kind of the stress I'm in, some would call symptoms. But you also have all the effects of my trying to covering it up for years and living with it in silence. I finally could not take anymore in my late teens. I simply couldn't, and suicide seemed like the option for me. In what was the greatest moment of courage in my life to date, I finally asked for help. I went to a mental health provider. I was brought to one. And I was diagnosed over a couple of visits, and I was told I had a brain disease and I would need psychiatric medications for the rest of my life. Based on a chemical imbalance theory that people were using back then. I had such a hard time. I wanted to doing things. I wanted to be good at something. So I thought I could be a good patient. So So I did what I was told. I followed through. My life became about taking my medications. And I can tell you, in college, it's probably late teens going into college. 2 weeks after I started, my sex life gone for a long time. It was a big trade-off. I wasn't feeling any benefits of them. Sleepless nights, many side effects, many different psych meds. I think I spent 19 taking in my life. And my life became about managing symptoms of not feeling bad. Instead of feeling good, it was striving to not be sick, to worry, looking for symptoms, living every day in fear of what would happen, instead of striving for happiness and a meaningful life. I did this for a lot of years, and it was a very tough road for me. As I mentioned, I had many side effects I dealt with. I finally experienced kind of that feeling of being beaten and broken. It wasn't happening for me. It was too hard for me. My experience was just too hard. And by the way, my diagnosis went from 1 to 2 to 3 over this time. And I basically gave up. And I gave up and thought maybe I could just go off and kind of do my own thing. And I found some peace in places I shouldn't have found them, like Mohegan Sun, places like that, bars. I became incredibly addicted to gambling and other things. Kind of went down this spiral of incredible despair, emotional distress, extreme states, addiction. It caused incredible damage in my life. I hurt people around me. I ended up in a psychiatric hospital. Spent some time there. Got out of there just thinking that suicide was the only option. My life was over. Ended up in a rehabilitation facility that worked on co-occurring disorders. I use kind of air quotes. I don't really like labels, but dealing with emotional stress and addiction. And I got there, and I remember the first day, and I was just, again, so beaten, so broken. It didn't feel like any reason to live. I didn't think I should because I had hurt people. So first day, someone came to me and said, "Are you ready to start your life over?" And I said, "Well, I can't. I did these things. I have this brain disease, and just my life is over. I'm just waiting to die." And he said to me, "You see the scar on my shoulder?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "That's where I was tackled by a police officer and got cut when I was robbing a bank." He said, "You see the scar on my head?" He said, "That's where I shot myself in the head when I thought I had no reason to live anymore." He said, "You see these pictures? This is my new family. This is my house. This is in Florida. His house is near the beach." He told me his life he had now, which sounded incredible. And he said, "I'm going to tell you how I did it." And he started to share his story with me. And from that time, over the next few years, so many other people came to me and told me things that could really help me. Tools. And mental health professionals, people have been through comparable experiences. A host of people came to me. I listened and I learned. But the first thing I need to learn, I need to understand this is my life, my body, my choices, and I have to be responsible and to be accountable for my life. If I was going to change, I was going to take this very seriously and know that I would have to do everything I had to be well. I learned the power of nutrition both ways. To feel good, to be well, also to be really not well. GMOs, gluten, processed sugar, alcohol, what they do to our systems, our bodies, particularly people that experience extreme states like myself. I learned that through the years of covering up my emotional distress and covering up my addictions, I'd become very manipulative, very controlling. Didn't know that. I had to learn in time that I do a lot of things to get better. I become very defensive and deflected things, and I had to learn to work through all those things. And it was very hard, and there's things I'm still working on and will always work on. I learned that it's okay to be emotive. It's okay to have bad days. I got to where I am, and I know so many of my friends who've gone through the same feeling where if you feel anxious, you feel not well, you think you need to go do something about it. Go take a pill, take a drink. Learn to just be okay with having a bad day, to know that tomorrow will be better. And it's a really powerful thing for me to understand. I learned that, I can believe in myself because I had no self-esteem for so many years. I went to school, college, law school, 19 years. I don't think I ever raised my hand. I don't think I ever voluntarily participated in anything. 19 years ago, I got credit for it. It took a lot longer with all the stuff I was going through, but now I'm here speaking in front of you. I speak all over. I spoke in 7 states. I was asked to speak in London, and I couldn't even raise my hand in a class of 10 people. All through the things, the wellness tools I've worked through and incorporated into my life, structuring my life. My day is very intentional. I do the same things every day. I wake up, I pray, I meditate, I do yoga. I do the same things I do every day. I need to do that to be well for me. Do I think what I do would work for everyone? Of course I don't. But other people shouldn't assume what they're talking about will work for me either. My friend Will Hall, who presents a program, wrote a book on how to come off psychiatric medications. He's done really well. He's asked by the American Psychiatric Association to present a couple of months ago. He's gotten really good response in follow-up meetings with them. He talks about the mental health system as a big toolbox. Except when you open it up, there's just hammer after hammer after hammer. It's time we get some new tools in that toolbox. I can look at my experience. I spent so much time reflecting, thinking over everything I've gone through. I take so much responsibility for my life, believe me. But there's things that I dealt with that could have been better. When I reached out to help for people, I paid for help. It should have been better. So I spend a lot of time thinking, what can I do better? What can my agency do better based on my experience, based on the 11 folks I work with who also self-identify with comparable experiences to mine. We've come up with a lot of different things. And one thing I think we had to address early is a psychiatrist friend of mine who's written many books. Him and I had a long conversation. I talked about a lot of things that worked for me. And he agrees, those are great things. But he said if you take 100 of his patients, maybe one would do them. And he's got to help people. So this is kind of the way it is, the way he does things. And I thought about that, and I understand that. I do. Because I know this country is about quick fixes. So if you go in, you're in stress, and someone says, take this bottle of pills or do this whole program, I understand what most people are going to pick. So we worked on things in our wellness class, things like transformative habits, how to slowly add things to your life. We have people on our staff who started walking in place, running from like here to the wall. She's now a marathon runner. We have, how do you incorporate these things? I started meditating a minute a day. That's all I could do. And I incorporated these things over time. Gluten went for me, alcohol and gambling first, of course, but then, gluten and then processed sugar and many other things, artificial sweeteners, and slowly things have gone through my diet over time using these kind of, how to incorporate these habits into your life so it becomes easier for you. So we teach about how to do that. Of course, we teach what those positive transformative habits could be. People can choose whatever they want, including just medication. We support whatever people choose as long as they're given options. If you're given options and your choice is kind of the standard mental health system thing, that's fine. We support you. But you got to be given options. Given one form of treatment, which in this country usually is medications, or you can go on your way and be in your crisis. That's not choice. It's not choice. Coming and say, okay, you take the medication, but you also should really look into doing this. You're looking to organize. You should talk to peers about your experiences. Like the police officers mentioned, they're incredibly profound to talk about these experiences with people who have gone through them. Now, I know my experience when I went through, but we have to be honest. The empirical outcomes of the mental health system in this country are tragic. 2006, medical directors did a study that showed that people accessing public mental health services are dying 25 years younger. Social Security disability is adding 850 people a day for mental health issues. And everything I say, I have stats that are off. If any of you want, just let me know. And again, these studies aren't ours. They're done by mental health providers. They're done by other agencies, Ivy League schools. Nothing, our movement, we don't have any money. They're not our studies. 16,000 kids were on Social Security disability for mental health reasons in 1987. It's over 600,000 right now. Now, do I think mental health experiences are real? Of course I do. I told you about my childhood know, they're incredibly real. If I don't live the life I'm living, I know what's in store for me. I understand that extreme states can cause incredible suffering. But I also know the human brain is amazing how it manifests itself and kind of believes what you tell it or what people tell you. So when people tell you you're broken, and you're probably going to be on Social Security disability for the rest of your life, they tell you you should lower your expectations in life, we tend to believe it. We start to think that way. That's why the self-responsibility thing was so big for me, because you almost get to a point where it's like, well, something you don't want to do, I'm too sick to do that, I have mental illness. Man, that's dangerous. We don't want to do that. We got to empower ourselves and folks that are going through this. People I work with, you heard some of my story. People on Social Security disability were over 100 pounds overweight, consider themselves quote-unquote mental patients, who are now doing amazing things with their lives. They've changed everything. I always ask a lot of questions to kind of learn and grow as a person and grow in my role. And one thing that's been really clear to me, now my experiences, I don't remember. I don't know if my experiences are genetic. I don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I don't remember not having some difficulties. So I've been asking a lot of people to kind of look into that, just based on talking to people. There's a lot of people that are quote unquote considered mental patients or self-identify that way, who were just an example I give often. A woman who has a very healthy, meaningful life on all accounts, whose beloved husband dies, and seeks help from her doctor. 75% of psych meds are prescribed by family physicians. And is given antidepressants. A month later, very sad, her husband died. Is given more. Can't sleep, is given Ambien. 8 years later, 80 pounds overweight, has diabetes, now considers herself a mental patient. There's no biological basis there. There's no chemical imbalance there. And this is so common. So when you act, I hope you will come from one of understanding, not a fear. What you're doing, what you recommend, what they do here is not going to impact Adam Lanza. He's dead. It's going to impact thousands of millions of people. People that are lawyers and doctors and judges and kids. You know, that don't need to experience this, don't need to be labeled and hurt, need to be embraced. We talked about crisis, how to deal with people in crisis. It's so important, how to just be with them and let them be in crisis. Crisis is often the window to incredible opportunity in people when their true potential comes out, which is what happened to me. People asking for suicide is a very important thing. Someone tells you they feel like killing themselves. They're saying they can't take their experience or they want to change. That's powerful. You shouldn't be looking down at that. How we address suicide needs to change in this country. And we talk about evidence-based. I think I've heard at least twice today. There's probably 8 people with me. I was supposed to testify on April 12th. I would have packed this room, but 2 days notice and some things the last 2 days. That are the evidence. Folks have been labeled with many different diagnoses that are working incredible jobs, doing incredible things, sitting to my right. And that's the evidence that this stuff works. So we teach the class, looking at yoga and being present and being mindful, we teach a lot of that and self-discipline and how to move beyond trauma, how to celebrate our uniqueness. These are classes we teach at Advocacy Unlimited, and they're so important. We teach them in a very peaceful way. Like I'm an advocate and an activist, and I have kind of a different tone maybe to my voice depending where I am. Some people here know. Dr. Griffith knows. We were on a panel together recently. But when we teach these, it's all about celebrating who you are. I don't tell people to come off medications. I had something to help me. It's not about that. This is not anti. This is trying to support people and let people grow and find ways to be the best they can be and enjoy their human experience to the best extent possible. And that's what we do in these classes. They're really wonderful to go. And a lot of you here have done those kind of things. And a lot of you here, besides Kathy, have dealt with some emotional distress in your lives. I mean, she talks about it, but we know she's not alone. Not in this panel. She's not. Anxiety, stress, depression, sadness. I mean, that's a lot of us. Now, do some of us go to extremes and need some tools? Yes, of course. And there's a lot of things available. It can't just be one. I've been to every provider, I think, in this state, and I talk to people, and there's some great people working at every one of them. But it's always about medication. At most places, there are some options here and there, but usually it's about, first and foremost, medication. Let's look at beyond that. And if it's just medication, we've got to have many other things. It's not enough. Parents call me and say, I am afraid to ask for help for my children because I'm afraid of D&D, diagnosis and drugs for my kids. And they're scared of that. And I like to tell them they shouldn't be, but they should be. My third diagnosis, I saw a psychiatrist for 11 minutes and was told I was bipolar. 11 minutes. Years later, I had open heart surgery, and that record came to the doctors. And they saw the bipolar disorder label in my records. And the shift in the way they treated me was unreal. To people, my family watching, it was unreal. The stigma of labels. They are very real. Finland has programs where they have frontline, we talk to people, be with people, listen to people, see where they're at, their experiences. And then if they feel, okay, now they need to go and see a psychiatrist, a doctor. That's a great philosophy. I tell people, my experience in psychiatric hospital, I was there and we did nothing all day, nothing. This is not that long ago. This is not 50 years ago. I sat in a bed. I'm guessing that they were waiting for medications to kick in. I don't know. I was in that rehab facility that was working on both my emotional stress too and addictions. They worked me all day long. Groups, 12 steps, one-on-one therapy, biofeedback machines, all day long. Probably 15 hours a day we worked on stuff. I learned how to be me. I learned how to move forward. I learned how to move towards a meaningful life. Someone in my family is struggling and going through emotional stress, I would not hesitate for a second to send a loved one to that rehab facility. Not a second. In fact, I can't wait to go back and visit. I just haven't fit it in. That's how important it was to me. I would die before a loved one went to that psychiatric hospital. I would die first before I allow that to happen. That's how bad it was. So parents that want loved ones or kids to seek treatment, they should feel like it's that kind of environment where there's options, there's choices, where you feel good about it. When you get well, you want to go back and thank them. And you feel okay referring people to them. I'm not sure that exists very much in this country. I really don't. And it should. I enjoy my life. I love my job. I think I add a value member of society. I think I contribute. I didn't for a long time. I do it with a very mentioned lifestyle I live. I think people have told me in the system, they've heard this, that it wouldn't be possible. If I told them this is where I want to be, I think I've been told it's not possible. I could have told the people in the rehab center that I want to be, who knows, some pick the position. They would have said, okay, let's figure out a plan. It was amazingly supportive. And the power of peer support is interesting to hear from the police officer's standpoint. But talking to people about trauma and things they saw and things they experienced who have gone through it is really, really profound. And we have to have more of that in the system. It's really important. And it's not that expensive. The problem is we got to make sure peer support specialists working in the system have their own discipline. They're not influenced or co-opted by the current system. They got to be allowed to do their jobs. That's really important. And we look at the alcoholism. Remember in the probably heard or read, 1800s, early 1900s, people died in psychiatric hospital of alcoholism. Connecticut Valley Hospital, people died there of it. Bill Wilson, the founder of AA, and others took it into the community. People with comparable experience saved people's lives. It saved millions of lives over the last 7 years. It's amazing what peer support can do. We need to have it in our mental health system here in Connecticut. We have some. Commissioner Pat Reamer's trying. There are roadblocks, and we need to have the roadblocks removed. And I know it's lunchtime. People want to go, so I had, covering up. How could a pill fix that? Years lying to cover up my symptoms or whatever you want to call them. Pills can't fix that. We need so much more therapy modalities, so many other things besides it. Do I think psychiatry is a place? Of course I do. But it's a well-rounded approach we need to all this. And that's not what we have right now. We need more than what we have. We need to do better as a country. We do. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Drumm. Questions from the panel? Ms. Flaherty.
This is really more a comment than a question, and I'd like to thank Deron for coming and sharing his story, and really everybody who came this morning, and for those members of not the mental health group that helped put together all these upcoming weeks on mental health. Just want to let folks know, if it was not abundantly clear by the presenters this morning, that really the purpose of this morning's discussion was a presentation on mental health by people with lived experience in order to increase understanding of the experience of people living with mental illness and their family members, and what it's like to experience discrimination, some of the education programs that are available to combat stigma, and what are some of the particular issues faced by families, the barriers that can lead people to choose not to engage with services, challenges involved with raising children with special needs, and really, more importantly, the ways the community can come together and effectively interact with a person living with a mental health issue. And I'd really just like to thank Deron especially, and the folks from the police department too. I'm glad we were able to talk about peer support for our first responders, but really talking a lot about the importance of peer support for people living with mental health issues. As Deron knows, it's something I'm involved in too, so thanks.
We happen to be the same age. So we experienced big events at the same time. And I'd be interested in your perspective. In Columbine, an analysis of the police response to Columbine changed the way that police officers respond to an active shooter in a way that has saved lives. Have you seen any significant enhancements based upon any tragedies, big or small? And B, you mentioned the Finnish intake model. You mentioned the incorporation of transformative habits into a treatment module. If there was one specific, if you read our crime report and said, "Aha, they got that right," what would it be?
Well, you're mentioning about the Columbine and other tragedies. I mean, quickly my brain's saying no, but that wouldn't be fair. I think a lot of the trauma things, I think Dr. Schwartz talked about vicarious trauma, I think we've gotten better in that arena. I do. The one thing is peer support. It really is peer support. People with comparable experiences coming in and helping others. Let me tell you, in our class, we have people with PhDs that feel they want to do it this way. They don't want the clinical rules. They want to be able to talk to people on that human one-to-one level. And they want to be able to disclose, first and foremost. So we have people that were attorneys. We have all kinds of walks of life. So much diversity in our courses. People that know how important this is. Now they don't all want to work in the system, but they want to learn these skills so they can help people in the community. And so I think the peer support piece is incredibly important.
Anything else? Ms. Forster.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Our clinic was started by a man who was locked up in CDH for many years, and when he came out, he wrote a book, and despite living with mental illness, actually, spent the rest of his life trying to advocate for the study and try to change the world's approach in addressing stigma. I think the thing that I heard the most from you, and I heard all this morning, was the incredible value of community. Your work on peer-to-peer support, Mom with NAMI, and finding other mothers who had this experience. And I wonder, how do you think, what kind of recommendation do you think we could make as a commission around supporting community development? Would it be specifically to increase peer-to-peer programs, or, just what do you see as the future that would be?
Well, thank you, and I much admire Mr. Pierce. So, um, the Street Guys, I think the peer support, I think that'll spin off in the community like it has for A. I think in time, frankly, our community needs our Bill Wilson. Hopefully someone can get that done for us. But as far as it's kind of the stigma and everything, we got to get away from the labels, all the labels. That is so huge, and I don't know how you recommend that. I don't know if it's possible. Of course, I don't know if you would. We got to stop labeling people right away so fast, and it's scary. And we got to really have people like you got to let people like me testify. You know, it's much better than me with lived experience that should be here doing this. They're much more articulate than me. I mean, it's important to understand that we are humans, and we live right near Mark Twain. He talks about all the emotional stress he had. He talked about how walking, probably on the ground under this building, how walking helped him, laughing with friends. Abe Lincoln was on suicide watch by his neighborhood, became president of the United States, and many credit him for ending slavery. I mean, these experiences are things we all go through to different levels. We can't have these quotes of the mentally ill in newspapers, the deranged people, because it's all of us. It is. We all experience things. If we haven't experienced extremes, we could. I told you the example with the trauma. It could happen to anyone this afternoon, God forbid, and then you're experiencing it. So getting away from the labels and the name calling. You know, it's scary to me. I know as a group, people that are willing to disclose, like Kathy and myself, you know, we're not a group with a lot of money. We don't have a national organization that talks for us. We don't have those things yet. So it's easy to blame us. It's easy for big organizations like the NRA to say, well, it's that, or anyone. It's also easy to have panels like this, like the one Congress had in D.C. a couple weeks ago, and not invite any of us. E4, Tory, and others talked about what's best for us, and no one thought to invite one of us. If you did that for any other group of people, you would get international pressure against you. You'd have people protesting outside. You have a panel and talk about gun control without the NRA here and see what happens. But yet doing it without our voice here is so common. We fought for probably a month and a half at Advocacy Unlimited to get our voice in the paper. And Current came through and others followed. Because people are saying what's best for us. Radio shows have CEOs of providers and from DMIS. And not that their ideas aren't valuable. Not that I disagree with everything. But why wouldn't you have us there? And family members coming in and talking about their kids. Pick the ones to say how great their kids are doing. Bring them in. These are adults. Let them tell everyone how well they're doing, how great their experience has been. Our voice needs to be heard.
Thank you for sharing your experiences and thoughts with us. Do you know of anyone who's been helped by being in a psychiatric hospital?
I read about someone once. Boy, actually, I know a lot that have been helped because it pushed them to work harder on themselves when they got out. You know, there's value. There's people in crisis that need that. Those beds. I mean, I'm not opposed to all of that. But while we're there, why can't we be working harder on things? Have people interact with people? You know, the psychiatric hospital I was in, a very highly paid staff kind of sitting around playing cards and reading. My rehab center didn't, and they were so active. You know, why not have people more engaged when they're there? Now, I haven't toured all of them. But I guess it is this idea of waiting for meds to kick in. I'm not sure exactly why there's just kind of sitting around watching TV. But people need to be more engaged.
Anything else? Okay. Mr. Drumm, thank you for your time and thank you for